everybody. Welcome back to the Jump Show after a brief hiatus, which saw the Cheltenham Festival happen. In case you missed it, now is the time to lick our wounds, I feel, because it wasn't the greatest festival in terms of our Ante-Post tips, but we'll come to that a little bit later on. We'd love to reach 300 likes for this final episode in the Cheltenham series. That would be great. We really do thank you for your support so far. And as I say, a little bit later on, we're going to be going through our selections and how they did. Very much looking forward to that. But first of all, I think we're going to go through highs and lows of the week. But before we do that, I'm going to say hello to the panel as ever. It's Jake and Dan. And Jake, I know that you had a lovely week in terms of a little bit of hospitality here and there, and I'm sure you enjoyed yourself immensely.
Yeah, Cheltenham's always a good week, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, I managed to complete the marathon once again, so well done me for that. But I think I might be doing it one more time next year, but that'll probably end up being the last time if it does happen. But we'll
I
see
feel like
how
you
we go
are
in the meantime.
indefatigable. You are tireless. Like I feel like if it was 8 days, you'd be fine.
I'm a 33
Relentless,
to 1 shot in the
remorseless.
Martin Pipe.
Yeah.
um, Dan, how are you? I know that you had a nice couple of days at Cheltenham Tuesday and Wednesday, managed to get through fairly unscathed.
Tuesday, Wednesday is enough for me these days. On the train to London on the Wednesday evening, I was a beaten and battered and tired man, as a certain friend of ours has picture proof of me asleep on said train, which is obviously, as your friends do in a moment of vulnerability. What do? You take photos of them, naturally. So no, interesting week. It was, as we'll get into, brutal week and a humbling week for me. Personally, from a punting front, I've had a very good season in a lot of respects, but this week really did just knock me down a peg or two, which, to be honest, I probably deserved.
Highs and lows. We'll start with the low points of the week. And Dan, we'll come to you first. What was your low point of the week?
A divisive one, and I got into an argument with a bloke on the stairs as we were watching her come in after winning the mare's hurdle, which I think tells you everything you need to know about how I view this. But Lossiemouth winning the mare's hurdle, to me, was just empty. It was just hollow. Like for 2 years we'd built up to her running in the champion hurdle, and then last minute detour just to the mare's hurdle. At that point you assume, oh, things can't be well with her. There must be a genuine reason why they're going. And then she absolutely hacks up, and like, not only hacks up, she pulls clear of the one horse you'd have in second as the clear standout otherwise. So the form just stands up. So she's clearly just run extremely well. And then in what is quite a beautiful twist of fortune, you've got the horse who would have run in the mare's hurdle, but then didn't because Lossiemouth went to the mare's hurdle, then winning the champion hurdle, which was just magnificent to see. I think that was a and again, seems almost borderline scripted event, to be quite honest. But it's an advert for having a go, and this is what you reap. And realistically, I thought she got a pretty muted reception, and the bloke to my right was saying, "There's nothing wrong with her doing that. There's nothing wrong with her doing that." I thought there's a lot wrong with her doing that as the third best hurdler in training, and would have won the champion hurdle doing handstands based on how she ran in the mare's hurdle. So I think when you've even got the Maloney team and Kenny Alexander sort of saying, "Oh yeah, we probably might have to do something about this mare's hurdle," I think things have gone a bit too far.
Was the bloke standing next to you Joe Chambers by any chance?
No, no, it was. I wish that would have been an interesting debate. Yeah, yeah. I think he would have been too busy pole vaulting over into the winners' enclosure and gloating about "well done, me," but that kind of stuff. But no, it divided opinion, and she got a bit of reception, but I was just kind of stood there thinking, you should be running in 40 minutes time.
Do we think there should be some kind of deterrent for these Grade One mares that have already won at Grade One level, having some kind of penalty in that race or something to deter them from going into it? Because if it carries on like this, it's just, as you say, it's just becoming a bit of a mockery, isn't it? Really?
I mean, there's got to be something. What you do is a bit difficult because whether you do grade ones don't have penalty structures, so that makes it difficult. You could try and potentially implement one. Ratings caps, well, then you're very much left in the hand of what the handicapper assesses you at. So that comes with its own problems as well. Obviously, maybe you do qualifying criteria. If you've won a grade one race in the last 12 months against your own sex, you're disqualified from running in the race. There's a few solutions, none of which are perfect.
Mm.
But I think you have to do something. And maybe we're in danger of just hyper focusing on it because we're in an era where we do have some exceptional mares, and that's not always going to be the case. But it feels like there should be some sort of contingency plan for to avoid this from happening. I mean, they can have a race later on in the season if they really want it. Mares, we have generally a decent band of Grade One mares races later on in the season at novice level and at graded level. Do we really need to have one at the festival where the best should be clashing? Probably not.
Yeah, agree. You would have made the Champion Hurdle an even more interesting race as it was. It was extremely dramatic, as we well know. Uh, I'll go on to my low point of the week, and it was only by night getting chinned in the Arkle because she ran an absolutely mighty race. And in the end, it was the right decision to go there. Gavin Cromwell was almost rewarded with victory, but we were done by the closer of all closers, Django Bay. Even almost beat Masborough, but I think we did beat Masborough in the end, didn't we? But
Mm.
couldn't get quite get Django Bay. But she ran an absolute blinder. I was very proud of her. Amazingly enough, she drifted out to 25-1 at the off, having been 12-1 in the morning. And I thought, well, I'm probably going to come a long last here. It's going to be really embarrassing. But I've got to say, with half a furlong to go, I thought she was going to win. And yeah, it was very sad cheering her on and to be denied. I probably had a reaction similar to James Owen in the Triumph with East India Dog that went viral on
Oh,
various social media platforms. You could see his agony just slowly engulfing him, and I think it was like the same with me. It was a steady decline in happiness all the way.
is that why we didn't see you for the rest of the day?
Yeah, all the way from elation just to complete tragedy.
We were all there on the Tuesday. We were waiting for you at various points. You never showed up, and I think that's where it all went wrong for you.
Oh man, I was all over the place Tuesday. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know what I was doing.
Same
I
old, same old.
got to that point where I was going to places and I was like 5 minutes behind the person who had told me to go there. So I was just missing people, and then I was obviously in that place, and then I had to get to the next place, and I was missing people again. Oh, I was just one of those. But anyway, yeah, that's my low light. Only by night, just getting chinned. Um, Probably going to rankle with me for quite a while, but I'll try not to let it. And finally, Jake, what was your low light?
Yeah, I mean, a similar pain to you, probably not as bad actually, because Django Bai obviously looked like he was going to get pulled up turning for home. Like he was absolutely miles behind. But a very agonizing defeat, obviously, was for me 6.5 on the first day of the Thursday. Obviously, the first 2 days have been pretty brutal. The day one wasn't too bad. Day two for me was pretty bad. I had to get out in the bumpers, so it wasn't that how the 2 days I expected them to go. So I was hoping to get off to a fresh start on the Thursday morning. Going in with the Ante-Post slip in my hand. She hits the front, absolutely tanking. She actually pecked on landing at the second last, which kind of helped her because it allowed Diva Luna to carry her into the race for a bit longer without hitting the front too soon. But she was just absolutely cruising down on the inside. I've watched it back obviously a couple of times earlier just to refresh my memory, which was sad news. But Air of Entitlement, she's literally trapped on the inside running rail turning for home, and she just gets the perfect route through. She even got the perfect route through at the last, where Diva Luna just absolutely bolts out to her left. She jumps so violently left. She then leaves the inside for Air of Entitlement just to run straight through rather than having to try and get around Diva Luna. So everything went right for her. Obviously, she ended up running down 6.5 right at the finish, and it was just such a brutal watch because 6.5 jumping the last, you'd think she's absolutely going to hose up, and she just got a little bit lonely. She just didn't quite have that extra bit of kick when she heard the horse coming, and it was just a tough watch when you get within half a length of winning a Cheltenham Festival race. But look, that's the way it is. Erin Enticement had a very similar profile in the sense that she's only had one start over hurdles. She won it absolutely effortlessly. I did watch it back as well. Like she absolutely bolted up that day on the bridle. So you could say that she was pretty overpriced at 16-1, but she wasn't ever considered in the build-up or on the day, really, was she at all? Like, I didn't hear anybody really shouting her name. So yeah, it's just one of those. You've got to take it on the chin. She put in a mighty effort, and we'll see what happens in the rematch in hopefully the Ferry House Grade One.
I'm pretty sure I read that they weren't even going here initially. I'm pretty sure I read a comment from Henry when I think a stable tour came out that Erin Time, and obviously she won over 2.5, and so they were thinking, oh no, we're not going to send her to Cheltenham. She turns up and does that to you. Just absolutely heartbreaking stuff for you. I was doing a gig on the Thursday, and I obviously not an original, but I said, look, I think 6.5 is going to be tough to beat if she can get a decent position early. And the group of people who have obviously followed me in after the last, they all start turning around to me going, What a mate. Great start. Great start. This is just after that. I'm there like,
Oh,
would you like to say that again? It was a great
yeah.
start, was it? It was, yes. I did have to say, right, no more celebrating until the line, please. We've learned our
Yeah.
lesson. None of that ever again. It was, I felt for you though. That was as brutal to beat. I mean, but between the two of you, you've had no, those two were bloody tough to take.
Well, do you know
Yeah.
what as well? Though? I feel like that race demonstrates that the classiest horse doesn't always win. So I
Yeah,
think it was clear that 6.5 is the best horse in that race. But the fact that she was toughened up a little bit by Diva Luna, had to go past her, have a first battle, and then fight off Air of Entitlement. It kind of softened her up, didn't it? Getting rid of Diva Luna and then being pounced upon late. A little bit like Lou Lambert and East India Doc kind of had that private battle and were done late by Poneros. Um,
yep,
so I feel for you, Jake, because I think you actually had the best horse in the race, but just the
definitely.
way the race panned out, it was a bit unlucky.
It's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes at Cheltenham.
Onto the high point of the week, I'm going to start off. And this was unpredictable, at least in my book. He was about second favourite, I think, in the end. But Caldwell Potter winning the Jack Richards Novices Handicap Chase. The reason I put this as a high point is it's nice to have victory for the small guy. No, I'm only joking. That is not why I put it as the high point. Um, I'll tell you what I put it as a high point for, because I thought great credit has to go to Paul Nicholls here, because everybody wrote this horse off, at least on
Except for
social
David
media,
Jennings.
except for David Jennings. And credit to him. He was about the only person I saw with any kind of confidence behind Caldwell Potter. Um, but we'd all thought about this horse as being a soft ground horse who needs to be held up and get a pace into a race. And he's a little bit slow. I think I definitely thought that after what I've seen from him this season, having seen him win that Grade 1 in Heavy Grand. Um, but from the front, on top of the ground, he absolutely mullered them. And I thought fair play to Paul Nicholls. Like, this is a really good training performance to get him jumping so well as well. I mean, he absolutely flew over those fences. And in terms of like enjoyment visually, I thought it was one of the best performances of the week in terms of how much he was than the rest. He was just sent out in front, jumped amazingly, was never looking like he'd ever get caught. I thought it was a really impressive performance. And I know that he cost an absolute fortune and he was supposed to be like this, but the fact is up until now he hadn't been, and we all kind of wrote him off. So the reason I put him in there was because I thought credit to Paul Nicholls, he's had a dreadful season, and he'd be the first to admit that, but he managed to get it right on the day with him. The other thing as well, of course, in the colours of the late John Hales, that was lovely to see as well. That was part of the reason it's a highlight, because I know that Dan, you're going to touch on it a little bit later, but it was almost like a surreal script throughout the week, wasn't it? Jake, what's your highlight of the week?
Yeah, I'm going to be going to a race where I didn't even back the winner actually, which says a lot about how good it was, and that's the Turners on the Wednesday morning. Um, I just thought it was an unbelievable race, and it just kicked off the day in perfect fashion. Obviously, the day before we'd had a few favourites beaten. We'd had the likes of Constitution Hill and State Man both falling. We'd had Mashborough making that big mistake. There was just a few favourites and horses that many punters were there to cheer on that just didn't really fire or made a mistake. And this was the race where we had the three fancied runners all come to the fore and all just give it absolutely everything and put everything on the track. Like no one left anything behind. The Yellow Clay, but no less, like he came down the hill, tanked into a lead. Then Final Demand comes tanking on his outside and looks like the winner. Then the Yellow Clay manages to outbattle him, and then you've got the New Lion just to sweep by at the end and outbattle them all. So I just thought it was an incredible performance by all three horses, really. I guess namely the front two, with the way that they managed to pull clear of Final Demand in the end. Obviously, Final Demand, I think, will be I think he already is, isn't he? The Brown Advisory favourite. He'll be that type of horse. He'll be very well fancied and he'll be going up to 3 miles without a doubt. The Yellow Clay is very interesting. I'm not sure exactly what they're going to do with him. I guess chasing is obviously going to be an option. Wouldn't mind if they had a little look at the Stairs Hurdle division with the way it's shaping up, but I'll probably touch on that a bit later on. And then obviously you got the New Lion, who connections are saying they want to go to the Champion Hurdle with, which is great because we need horses like that to keep on coming through. I obviously right now I wouldn't have him top of my list, but you've got to go to a race like the Fighting Fifth or something like that and find out, haven't you? So yeah, it's just a really good race. Got punters being able to shout home every single horse. I was outnumbered by all the lads shouting home Harry Skelton, and I was the one there shouting home for Jack. But I still enjoyed the race nonetheless, and just came out of it saying what a race that was.
Yeah, actually, Jake, to be fair, if you hadn't put that down in running order as your highlight of the week, it was going to be mine because I thought it was the best race of the week,
Yeah.
Yeah.
the most exciting race. And I think the great thing about it was, as you just mentioned, like you had the three horses at the top of the market, the three really exciting novices, all taking each other on, and they were the ones who brought it out, and they were miles clear of the rest. So that
Yeah.
alone suggests the form was really strong. And then you've got Dan Skelton coming out and saying it's the best he's ever had. And you think, yeah, I think this is a really good race. I know the Mullins camp before was so confident, weren't they, about Final Demand? Um,
Yeah.
I get the feeling that race is going to be really strong in the future. But yeah, completely agree with that. It was an absolute cracker. Dan, on to your highlight of the week.
Yeah, and the Wednesday was a bit of a strange day in general. Obviously, a lot's been made of the attendance, which I think, well, we were there and it felt pretty empty, quite desolate to a certain extent, quite eerily quiet, and obviously a lot of factors going on behind there to make that so. But bar the opening race, which I agree with the lads, it was a proper race, favourite race of the week by some distance. But the script with Marine Nationale and Jazzy Matty both winning was. Said to you, Bully, like when we did the Friday Club, it almost felt like it was scripted, and even then, you'd almost be saying it's slightly too surreal. Like for the two horses Mikey rode 2 years ago to win on the same day, and not only that, but 40 minutes removed from each other, was yeah quite eerily precedent. And I think the atmosphere, particularly after Marine won, was quite special, despite obviously the reduced attendance. Everyone wanted to be for the parade ring for that moment, and it was really emotional. It was a scene which I guess people would somewhat hoped would happen. I didn't give it much of a chance of happening. I didn't think Marine National would end up winning a champion chase based on what he'd achieved this season, but Barry Connell never lost the faith, as he often never does with his horses. But no, it was a quite a spectacular scene, really, after Marine won, and you could see the emotion on everyone's faces. And for Jazzy Mandy to then, 40 minutes later, just cement it, it was yeah quite a surreal feeling, really, an emotional one. And in a week that was, from my angle, definitely quite a challenging week and one I'm not keen to look back on too often. That was a moment where racing just felt quite united, even though it's over a complete tragedy. It felt like a really emotional, uniting moment from everyone who was there.
Yeah, absolutely right, Dan. Couldn't agree more. It was very surreal. I I was just trying to think what are the chances really? I mean, you had the same two horses winning 2 years ago on the same day, and you got the same horses winning again. Mikey O'Sullivan. I mean, it was
Yeah,
just a fairy tale, complete
completely
fairy
different
tale.
connections.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
obviously it's yeah. I mean, minute to say the least. Chances of that happening, it's beyond comparison, really.
and I'm very much guilty of this, but I think most of us had written off Jazzy Matty a couple
Yeah.
of months ago, never winning a race again.
Gee, I mean, when he's a festival winning horse and connections are almost keen to get rid of him 3 starts later, I think that's a sign of the horse he was. But Kean Collins, trainer to follow at the start of the season. He's done some job with that horse, my
Yeah,
word,
yeah.
because I would not have had him. He's one of about 8 or 10 during the week I would not have had in a fit, and he's bolted up.
Yeah, he did win really easily, didn't he? But yeah, it's a great highlight, Dan, I have to admit. Right, should we move on to having a look in detail at our profit and losses,
If we must.
if we must? Yeah, well, I'm rather in your camp, Dan.
No, you've done better than me. Jeez, mine's an
Well,
absolute bloodbath.
in the end, I came out minus 3.8 points. With my eight selections, seven end up running. So that's, I suppose, in a way, that was good. Um, Olympic Man being the only non-runner. The big Westerner I put up in week two at 12-1 for the Albert Bartlett. I think she went off 7-2 or 3-1, something like that, favourite, or maybe a little bit longer, but it was around that mark. And she travelled into the race like the winner. Dan and I watched it in a cab on the way to the Friday Club.
We did.
I don't know about you, Dan, but I'm pretty sure about when she was coming down the hill, I thought we both thought she was going to win. She was travelling so strongly. Dara O'Keefe decided to go up the inner, coming down the bottom of the hill, and therefore got snatched up by Wingman. Had to switch out to the far side, and in the end, it probably cost her 3 or 4 lengths, I would say. And you just saw Paul Townend creeping into it like a little horrible little cat down the outside on Jasmine DeVoe. And they got the march on her. They got first run, and it was all over. But I thought she ran a blinder to be second. But I thought she was a little bit unlucky. Jubilee Alpha just looked outclassed in the Mares Novice, completely fine. I thought she was just not good enough. had every chance. Ile Francais, well, I mean, back to the drawing board with him. I think recently he's shown at Auteuil, now possibly shown at Cheltenham. He wants to go right-handed. Um, doesn't seem to me like he really enjoyed much of that race. He went to a little bit quick, but he faded so dramatically that it just wasn't clearly his true running. Getting back to Kempton, probably, if it's not knocked down. Um, then we got Terra Firma in the Boodles, who again ran okay and he finished 11th. Kind of beat half the field, but also got beaten by the other half. So not much to write home about there. Western Zephyr went off too quick and was taken on for the lead, but he wasn't good enough anyway. That was a bit of a shame, to be honest, because I was really confident about his chance each way. And then Only by Night was my seventh selection. She was second, as we already touched on. And sorry, the other one that didn't run was Telepathique. I still don't know what happened there, but she was pulled out very late on. She'd been declared, and then she was pulled out late. So if anyone knows, would you mind commenting in the comment section? Because I'm still bewildered. I assume she's got an injury, but there was nothing I
Where
saw
is
on social media.
Telepathique?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I have to say, in hindsight, I don't think she would have beaten Dina Blue, but she would have given a fair, good old go with it in the
I'd have
front.
said she'd have placed, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, because it did turn out to be not a great race. So, yeah, a bit of a shame in that. But overall, minus 3.8 points. Am I happy? No. Am I unhappy? Yes. Am I completely distraught? No. So I suppose that's a positive in some ways. Anyway, we fight again next year. That's the great thing about the Jump Show. Okay,
It is.
Dan, on to you.
Yeah, so we when we arrived on Monday evening, me and Jake went out for a few beers beforehand, and I think you asked me, was I confident, was I hopeful? And the answer was pretty much no. To be honest, not only with this, but I looked across the week, and there wasn't anything realistically I really liked for a variety of reasons. It just had the feeling of a week that wasn't going to go my way, particularly on this front, and it was just all those firms are very much confirmed true, and I think we'll have to do a bit of a rethink next year in terms of strategy. But we'll go through runner by runner as you did. I mean, this should be good fun. This will be therapeutic, shall we say? Cleanse the demons, because I mean, geez, some of these around absolutely god awful. So right, Jungle Boogie, who wouldn't, he could have run to a career best plus £20. He would not have beaten Factor File, but it was always never great when you see the jockey who's won on him twice from two get off with him. And then you get a text from Jake on the morning of, oh, I've heard the reason Danny's on, he's basically because he's bollocksed. So that was always a good start. And he went off like a scolded cat out in front. He took on Ile Francais for the lead and got to the front for a rare change. And then he got headed and literally decided he didn't like jumping fences anymore. But he did a good job of setting the race up for Factor File. So well done, Danny. You did your job there in that regard. Manada 6-0 is a horse who I was surprised even ran because he took a perler of a fall in that Temps qualifier, and he jumped like every single hurdle was on fire. I've never seen a worse round of hurdling in my life. It generally was a horse who had a terrible fall last time. He was buried on the inside, a horse who probably needs some confidence. Yeah, let's get 20 horses right around him. That'll really just ease his confidence back into it. God awful, never had a chance. He was beaten after a hurdle. Then you've got your four non-runners. Three of them they were long gone before we even got there. Briefly on Toon Surveyor, because they decided, I think because they had so many just blots in the county as it was, Willie said, oh, we're going to either go for the Coral or the county in a stable tour. I was like, oh yeah, I mean, he'll go for the county because he literally physically does not stay 2.5 miles. So after saying those two races, he then ran in the Martin Pipe, which I think kind of summed up everything you need to know about Willie Mullins' handicap planning for horses like this. And to be honest, he actually tanked into the Martin Pipe and didn't stay. Who would have thought? Absolutely ludicrous. He actually might have placed to the county, wouldn't have beaten Cargase. I don't think anything was beating her on the day. And then we're into a few that actually turned up there, and I thought, well, these have at least got sort of chances. I mean, we've got decent prices about them. Bossleton was obviously collapsed in price from 33 to 1. He went off into 7 to 1. Two false starts. He tried to line up prominently. The third start didn't get his prominent position and was just physically never in the race and pulled up early. It was just, it was so like, it's like, oh. And to be honest, I didn't need that, considering I'd just seen what happened to Comfort Zone, who 20 to 1 into 11 to 2, a horse who's physically never run a bad race in his life, just nowhere. Like completely out the back, like for no reason at all that I could see that was any excuse. He had his ground. Everything was ideal. He just ran absolutely atrociously. And Sabe was backed like he should have been going very close. So that's one of those you just kind of have to. I didn't need that two race stretch, really. They were the two kind of hopes that were actually a decent price, and both ran. So I needed Joseph to do something for me. He did nothing for me. Absolutely zero. So cheers, Joseph. I'll remember this. And then the final one was Man, who, even then, he I think the Kim Muir was actually quite a deep race this year, and probably deeper than the Ultima, I thought, in the end, how it turns out. Not normally the case, but I thought it was deep. He was, I think, a length down in fourth, turning for home, and ended up finishing beaten 22 lengths in ninth, despite being a horse with 3.5 mile stamina. So still, I mean, to be fair, the jump at the second last, I think he decided to, I'm going to twist every single bone and muscle fiber in my body in an awkward way and then get over the fence, which he did. So that didn't necessarily help his chances of hitting the frame, but he was awful as well. Look, complete blowout. This time last year, I was the king. From 8 bets, 20-1 winner, 16-1 winner, 33-1 place. This year, it felt like a feast or famine year. It was very much famine. It was atrocious. And I've had, obviously, a bit of thinking to do in terms of general strategy, and clearly that something needs to be adjusted in terms of how I approach it next year. But I think part of me still gets the enjoyment out of almost having these project horses that some I've priced up myself, that I have a long-term investment in. Like that's what I enjoy. And it's why I love doing shows like this, because it gives you that long-term something to follow. It doesn't have to necessarily be the obvious. It wants to be something a bit different. That's what engages me and makes me interested. So I think that will always have its place, and I'll always be like that. But I think to a certain extent, I also need to realize that for long-term sustainability reasons, you need to balance that out with a few more practical, solid options as well. And maybe that's what I'll try and do next year a bit better. This way has worked fine for me. Obviously, we've had very good years like last year. We've had bad years like this year. But maybe there's a balance to be struck somewhere in the middle. But to be honest, I had low hopes going into it, so I'm not surprised this happened. Obviously, still disappointed, and I can only apologise to those who did follow me. I hope at least some gave you a bit of a thrill, at least going into the race, that we were on a good ticket. None of them gave you any kind of good thrill during the race, because they were all absolutely god awful. But there we are. A bad year for me, but hey, we'll be back next year.
I mean, to be honest, mate, you did have 4 non-runners, which didn't really help. I mean,
well, let's not even touch on them. I've just about forgiven Hobbs and White. I don't want to. I don't want to. That's why I just thought, no, we're not even going to go into that. I've got enough to say. I'm not even going to go back into that world of pain. But again, lessons learned. Some trainers I'm not going to touch with a barge pole, even if they may tempt me. So it's all about learning.
yeah, but I mean, also the law of averages says you're not going to have a good year every year. It's impossible. I mean, some years will be better than
No,
others.
it's fine. Look, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the prices we were talking about here on each of those as well. Like they're all massive prices.
Yeah.
If I was putting up 5-1 shots and they were all getting absolutely stuffed, I think I'd have to do a good hard look in the mirror and probably delete my account. But that's not. I went for a bit of variance. I like horses at big prices. I like the handicaps. That's what I enjoy. And some of them turned up there in decent prices. Not as many as I would have hoped. It wasn't a good book going in. It was an even worse book coming out. That's just how it goes.
Yeah, with a horse like Comfort Zone as well, he was backed off the boards, as you said. Like you put him up at 20-1, and he was backed into what, 7-6 to 1, something like that.
11-2, yeah.
11-2, yeah. So the way it goes, I suppose. Just on Toontivator, Dan. Any other trainer who had a winner of a Royal Bond, I don't think would be campaigning it in the same way that Toontivator's been campaigned this year.
No. Well, yeah. So they screwed him up massively. They won the Royal Bond, then realised. I don't think they realised he wasn't a novice anymore. So they said, "Oh, we'll go to Christmas for the future champions." Couldn't run in that. Emergency switched to the 2.5 mile handicap at Leopardstown. Did not literally watch that race back. He got to 2 mile 2 there, and then just nothing, dead. He was gone, like completely no stamina left. Eye catching at the DRF. So what does this horse need? You know that race at the end of the week that's normally reserved for horses with like 3 mile stamina? Yeah, we'll go there, and didn't stay. So there you go. But what can you do?
Okay, a slightly better week, well, much better week than me and Dan really was had by Jake. So Jake, well done, and I think you must be pretty pleased with your haul in the end.
Yeah, definitely. As we always say in the series, you just need one, and God, she made me wait, but we'll get onto it.
You bloody deserved it, though. My word.
Yeah, so we started off obviously with Better Days Ahead, 16-1, came third in the Brown Advisory. So obviously it was only two places on the day, but Ante-Post was free. So we got the value, but that was so disappointing. When you see Ballyburn make the mistakes and not get back into the race, you're just thinking, look, we're in with a chance here. We're just as good as the rest of these. And he just never got close to winning it. It was very disappointing. Obviously, he needs soft the ground, but I wouldn't even give that as a good enough to excuse to say that you couldn't have got close to the winner. So yeah, that was a disappointing one, but at least we didn't lose any money on that one. Obviously, we've already touched on 6.5. That would have been a really nice one to go in, but as you said, these things happen. Carafon, very disappointing in the Martin Pipe. Obviously, I ended up covering that one, but Jesus, he was awful.
Well,
Travelled
did
all right,
60
and then
beat
just
him in the end? He
yes,
did.
I think he did. Yeah,
The
yeah,
horse lost 80 lengths jumping. He still beat Carafon. Can we put
genuinely,
that down
yeah.
as a win on the spreadsheet?
We should have had a match bet.
Yeah, I was good at match bets this week. I had a horse finish last and still won one. That's how good I was.
We won't touch on Lowry's Bar. Nothing to say there. We knew he was gone. Co-picked the board yet again, 2 years in a row. Put him up for the Turners. They go and win the Supreme. So next year, whatever I put up for the Turners, go and back it for the Supreme straight away because it's going to win. Is what it is. I've learned from my lesson. Well, I thought I learned from my lesson last year. Yellow Clay, I backed for both races. This one, for some reason, I didn't back for both races. But if this situation does come up again, where I do think there's a really good horse, I am just going to put them up for both races on this series because, especially if non-running no bets available, it's just worth the risk, isn't it? And have the two bets, and we'll see what happens. But Summer Jest, he ran a belter really. He jumped like an absolute buck around Cheltenham. He loved the game out in front.
Patrick Mullins from the front wasn't what I expected, but there you go.
No, it wasn't what I expected at all. And he got pestered for the lead by about three different horses at various points. So you can understand why he ended up finishing a fairly distant third in the end. But I thought he ran a really respectable race, and I'm sure there's a race in him at some point. But again, some each way returns off a 16-1 chance, so you can't argue with that. It's Bilbo, obviously, was a non-runner no bet race, so we'll leave that. And then, yeah, we get to Wood who, as I said, she made me wait till the very last race of the whole entire week, but 12 to
God,
1
you
with her.
deserved that.
Yeah, thank God. When I saw her tanking down the hill, I was just like, she has to get over the last. Please, God.
Hold her, Danny. Hold her, Danny.
Literally. But
You
yeah,
got
no,
the jump
she
shot out of a big
capped off.
hole, Jake. You got us all out of a big hole getting a winner.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, to be fair, she got me out of a hole in my personal Ante-Post betting as well. Like, so yeah, no, I owe that horse a lot. And considering Gordon hadn't had a winner all week, it wasn't exactly the most confident bet going into the last, as much as she was a 9-2 shot rather than a 12-1 shot. But anyway, yeah, she was mustard, and she's now into about 8-1 for the Mares Hurdle, which is short, but she was definitely impressive. So you can see what people are thinking there. After that transmission, I put him up as a 9-1 shot, but I did very much stress this was an each way shot with the five places available at the time. I said if he finishes out the five, something drastically wrong has happened, and he just about managed to cling on for fifth. So,
Nothing wrong
so
all went to plan then.
yeah, pretty much. Thank God Hashting took a fall because I don't think it would have happened else. But
Poor Hastings.
yeah, but yeah, so he picked up some each way returns. So again, nothing much in terms of profit, but it just stops the loss. And then lastly, Beyond the Dreams, she just never really got into the Fred Winter. But yeah, plus 9.6 points for the week. Very happy with that. Profit on the board yet again. So yeah, we'll onwards and upwards. Could have been better, could have been much worse. So very happy.
Yeah, well, well done, mate. Honestly, big congratulations. I honestly think at this festival, particularly, being in the plus in any kind of way is pretty spectacular. So big kudos. It was a very strange week as far as results were concerned. I think you deserve a lot of credit. So yeah, and thanks for keeping the flag flying for the jump show. Someone had to, and you came up trumps. Well done. Right, because we're all anoraks on here, and some would say losers. We are all already concentrating on the 2026 Cheltenham Festival, and we're going to put up one selection. I'm actually going to put up two, and Jake might have a second one as well. But we're going to put up some selections for next year's festival. And Dan, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, and because I clearly haven't learned my lesson, and I'm still going variant, so I'm going with a horse who didn't run and is injured for the rest of the season. So why do I do it to myself? But in this case,
I love it.
In this case, I do just think this is the wrong price, and that's Amsterdam, who's 33 to 1 for the Arkle. Now, I don't think you often get the opportunity to back a undefeated 5-year-old who's rated would be rated in the high 150s for Willie Mullins for a race like that at this kind of price very often. And it's not like it was that long ago he was running. Like he was very much going to the Aintree hurdle. That seemingly was the plan. And there was a stage where he was basically as short as Stateman was for the champion hurdle market, lest we forget. And obviously he got an injury that rules him out basically for the rest of the season. They said it'd almost be a push to get him back for Punchestown, which would imply that they could possibly, so the injury isn't that severe. So which would lead me to believe that all going into next season we should be fine. Obviously 4 from 4, hacked up on his reappearance when he won the 4-year-old hurdle, beating Carlo Conti, where a bit of an unknown quantity that day, but bolted up, looked a serious horse. They were giving him extremely high praise. Won the Limestone Lad, beating Beacon Edge by half the track, even though obviously free runner race, nothing really event. The way they're speaking about him suggests they think he's a top-notch horse, and he has the kind of profile to back that up. Now, Comet de Board is favourite for the Arkle, understandably so. He's the rightful favourite. I think he's around the 5-1 mark. I think outside of that, I think you've got a lot of questionable ones. William Mully would also have perfectly good claims there. But at 33-1 for Amsterdam, I just thought that was far too big for a horse of his profile.
Yeah, completely get it, actually, Dan. That's a massive price. You're right, for a horse.
It's just the wrong price. It's the wrong price.
For a horse that's clearly very, very good. Jake, on to you.
Yeah, the one I'll just quickly mention because there's no sort of target, and if we're putting up a bet at this stage, you want there to be some kind of solidified target or logical conclusion as to where they'll end up. So yeah, the Yellow Clay, if he was to go down the stairs hurdle route, I would be very, very keen on, because obviously Bob Ollinger went on the race. Oh, look, he's really good at Cheltenham Festival, but I'd still have my doubts about him in terms of being able to back that up next year. Tuipu, we've seen now that he's gone to 3 stairs hurdles. He probably should have won all 3 stairs hurdles, and he's only won 1. I think we can stop being afraid of Tuipu now at this stage, and he's only getting a year older. And then the Woolpark was in 3rd, and I think on that evidence, how the hell is the Woolpark ever going to beat Tuipu? That's what I would say about it. There's just no chance, is there? So if Gordon wants to have another dart at the race, the Yellow Clay would be the logical conclusion here. Obviously, chasing would be a potential option. I don't know exactly what route they're going to go down, but if he did end up going down the stage hurdle route, he would definitely be the top of my list for that unexposed novice. And he's already rated 155 in Ireland as well, which is the exact same rating as the Woolpark. So, based on that, he could be a very high 160s horse over hurdles. So, yeah, he would be top of the list if he went down that route. But I'm not going to put him up for this just purely because there's literally speculation on that. The horse that I will be putting up, though, is Jade de Grugy at 20-1 for the Mares Chase. I think this season they were planning on going chasing with her, because obviously she won the Grade 1 at Fairyhouse last year, having been 3rd behind the champion hurdle winner now. It's a big formal boost there on the Mares Novice. But yeah, she was supposed to go chasing this year. She came in late. They decided to stay down the hurdles route. She was very impressive in the Cabega, where she had to give away upwards, I think it was over £13. And then she goes and finishes 2nd behind Lossiemouth in the Mares Hurdle. Now, clearly, she's not going to be as good as Lossiemouth at any stage in her career over hurdles. However, she's a big chasing mare, and surely her future lies over fences. So if they can get her out in decent time this year, and they can get 3 runs into her before the Mares Chase, at least 2 runs in before the Mares Chase, she could be that progressive, scopy mare that just ends up being the Willie Mullins novice and improver. So obviously, Dino Blue would still be hard to beat this time next year, I'm sure. But Jade de Grugy, I thought 20-1 is a big old price.
Okay, nice one, Jake. Good selection, I think, for that. Next year's festival, the Mares Chase, 20-1, Jade de Grugy. I'm going to stick with the Heartbreak Kid, and that's the big Westerner. She's going to go chasing next year. Yeah, she's going to go chasing next year. I'm pretty sure. I've been led to believe. She's 16-1 for the Brown Advisory. She's a massive scopy mare. It's all about jumping a fence for her. Her relatives are close relatives, including Stairway Faye. They all are physically very well built and all handle fences with aplomb. So you expect she's going to improve over fences. And I think 16-1 about the race next year. It's the obvious route for her. The 3-mile novice. She was in the 3-mile novice hurdle. And I thought she was an unlucky loser. So I think she makes a lot of appeal. And we know how well Henry de Bromhead does with his horses that have done well in the Albert Bartlett going chasing. We've seen that before. Minella Indo probably being the most high profile and notable horse to go on to better things. So the big Westerner at 16s for next year's Brown Advisory. And a word too, because provided Sergino comes back, I got good. I'm feeling good about this horse coming back to racing next year. He's now back at Nicky Henderson's. That was also good to hear. And I think at the moment, 7-2 for the Champion Chase. He, in my book, is clearly going to be the best horse if he gets there. So we already know he jumps really, really well. He was so slick at Kempton. If he manages to get to the race, he'll be odds on, and there won't be anything to beat him. I mean, I know that the likes of John Bon, Mashborough, John Bon will be back. Mashborough will be there as well. But I mean, if Mashborough had taken on Sergino this year, I would have had Sergino all day long. I know that Mashborough didn't jump well, but he was clearly the best horse in the race. I still would have had Sergino every day of the week. So I think if he gets to that Champion Chase next year, he'll be long odds on. Well, maybe not long odds on, but he'll be odds on. And at the moment, he's 7-2. I think you're taking a price about whether he gets to the race. And I think that's very fair because he'll be the best horse in it. So those are my two for next year. And that leaves us at the end of our Ante-Post series for 2026. It's been a huge amount of fun. Thank you so much, everyone, for your support, for your likes, and for your subscriptions. If you haven't clicked that button, please do, because we are not done yet. We'd love to reach that 300 like goal for this episode, but Jake, we're going to be back, aren't we, before Aintree?
Yeah, I mean, we've only got next week off, and then the week after that is Aintree. So we've literally got less than 2 weeks, pretty much. So yeah, all full steam ahead. We'll do some kind of video or live stream or something. I'll talk to the lads and we'll sort something out. But we'll let you know on social media what we're going to be doing for it. And yeah, hopefully we can find you some more winners there.
Absolutely, yeah. And we've averaged 6,500, nearly 6,500 views per episode, which was well beyond our wildest dreams. I think really coming into it this year, it's really gone up a notch. And the live stream went down really well too. Sorry, I missed that. I was dealing with gluten intolerance problems, and then I looked at the live stream comment section with the amount of people saying, "Where is Tom Bull?" And I thought, "Oh, everyone really likes me. That's so nice." And then I realised why.
Oh, did you not see the other messages that said, "Where is Tom Bull? He'll back no winners"? I think there was about 15
I
of
did
those
see that,
messages.
and yeah, that was a very
they were
prophetic
right.
comment, wasn't it? Yeah, that was. He had a nice crystal ball.
To anyone who commented, well done, mission accomplished.
You will never miss another one. It's fine.
Yeah, no, I will not. Great stuff, guys. Thanks as ever to Jake and Dan, and thanks to you for watching. We'll see you in a couple of weeks for the big Aintree Bonanza.